You fix things, Walter. That's enough. I said yes, even though my stomach turned the minute she left. It had been months since the storm. People in Dayton didn't know the details of what happened back in Lancaster. Most never asked. But standing in front of strangers telling my story out loud, that was a different kind of exposure. Still, I wrote something down. Just a page, just in case. The night of the event, the sky was soft with early fall. Lights strung between trees swayed gently as kids ran barefoot through the grass. Folding chairs creaked under the weight of neighbors and second helpings of potato salad. When they called my name, I stood slowly. Walked to the mic with hands that hadn't shaken like this since the day Ruth passed. I looked out at the crowd, maybe 50 people, familiar faces from the Fix-It Saturdays, Denise near the front, and somewhere in the back, Mason with his kids Ava with a smudge of grease still on her cheek. I cleared my throat. "My name is Walter," I said, and not that long ago I thought I'd lost everything. A few people quieted. Kids stopped rustling. I used to believe a man's worth came from what he could provide, from being needed, being useful, but then something happened that made me feel discarded. I didn't mention the lottery, the headlines, the family fracture. Instead, I told them about a Sunday morning when I made pancakes for no one, about walking through my house and realizing I'd built a life around people who no longer saw me, about a garage that gave me something back, not just work, but a reason to stand up every morning. I don't think healing always looks like reconciliation, I said. Sometimes it just looks like showing up with your hands, your stories, and saying, "This is what I have. Take it if it helps." A pause. I opened that shop because I missed hearing the sound of something working again. Not just engines. People. I looked down at the card in my pocket, Ethan's latest drawing. I've learned that you don't have to be famous to make a mark. You just have to stay. To keep fixing what you can, even if it's small. Silence. Then a slow clap. Then another. By the time I stepped off the stage, I'd shaken more hands than I could count. An older woman hugged me and whispered, "I lost my husband 3 years ago. Your story made me feel like I could start over too." A teenager asked if she could visit the shop. A boy gave me a high five and said my grandpa likes fixing stuff too. I walked home under a sky full of stars, not proud, not vindicated, just human again. The next day, someone had left a note on the shop door. "Thank you for reminding us that quiet men can carry the biggest stories." I pinned it beside Ethan's drawing. Because maybe that's what I'd become now, not the man in the headlines, not the figure in a lawsuit, just a quiet man with a story, one that didn't need to be shouted to be heard. It was a Thursday, late afternoon, the kind of day when the rain doesn't pound, but whispers steady, patient, like it's asking for permission. I was in the back of the shop sorting through old bolts when the bell above the garage door jingled. I called out, "Be right with you, not looking up." Then I heard it. Grandpa, I froze. The voice was unmistakable, young, full of hope, just like I remembered. I turned slowly, and there he was, Ethan. Taller than I expected, a little thinner, his raincoat too big for his frame. Behind him stood Lindsay holding a paper bag and something unreadable in her eyes. I didn't speak right away. Neither did she. Ethan broke the silence. "Mom said we could visit, just for the afternoon, if that's okay." I looked at him, my grandson, my boy, and nodded. "Yeah, that's more than okay." I led them inside, the smell of oil and rust mixing with the scent of rain on warm concrete. Lindsay handed me the paper bag. "From Ethan," she said. "He wanted to bake something." I peeked inside banana muffins, slightly uneven, definitely homemade. "You helped?" I asked him, smiling. He nodded proudly. I mashed the bananas. We sat on crates near the workbench, the hum of the rain filling the space between us. I poured 3 cups of cocoa from the shop thermos. Ethan's eyes wandered, landing on the pegboard of tools, the framed drawing he'd sent me, now a bit faded by sun. "You kept it," he said softly. "Of course I did," I replied. "It's the best thing hanging in here." Lindsay looked down, then cleared her throat. "I didn't come here to make excuses," she began. Or, to fix what can't be fixed. "I just thought maybe Ethan should know you not from old photos or stories, but for himself." I stayed quiet. Let her speak. He's been asking more questions lately, about family, about what happened. I didn't want to keep lying. I met her gaze. "Thank you for telling the truth." Her eyes shimmered. She nodded once. Ethan, unaware of the gravity, munched on a muffin and asked, "Can I see the cars?" I laughed. "You sure can." I gave him the grand tour, showed him the old Mustang we were restoring, let him sit behind the wheel, watched his face light up like I'd handed him the moon. He asked about every button, every lever. He listened like it mattered. While he explored, Lindsay stood by the shop window watching him. "I was angry," she said quietly. "Back then. I felt betrayed. Like you didn't trust me." And I lashed out. I nodded slowly. "I know. And I was silent too long. I should have spoken up before things got that far." She looked at me. Really looked this time. You're doing good here. He can feel it. So can I. We didn't hug, we didn't cry, but something shifted. Later, when they were ready to leave, Ethan clutched the sketchbook. I gave him a blank one, except for the first page where I'd drawn the shop and written, "For Ethan, so you can draw what you fix." He hugged me tight. "Can I come back any time?" I whispered. "You always have a spot here." Lindsay lingered at the door. "I don't know what the future holds," she said, "but I know this visit, it was the right thing." I offered a small smile. "We start with small right things. That's how bridges get built." She nodded. "Goodbye, Dad." And just like that, they were gone. The shop was quiet again, but not empty, never empty again. Mason had scribbled it and stuck it to the side of the fridge in the shop. E's birthday, 10th. Just saying. I stared at it for a minute. 10 days away. I hadn't celebrated a kid's birthday in years, but the way Ethan hugged me last time, the way he asked if he could come back, I knew I couldn't let the day pass like any other. I didn't want big banners or clowns or a rented bounce house. I wanted Ethan to feel seen. So I started small. The next Saturday, I asked Ava if she could help me bake something. She raised an eyebrow. "You know kids don't like bran muffins, right?" I chuckled. "I was thinking lemon cake. He loves anything yellow." She smiled. "Now you're talking." Word got around fast. Not because I announced it, but because people noticed. Janice offered to string up lights outside the garage. The Rodriguez boys came by and cleaned out the old picnic tables behind the shop. Denise from the community center said she'd bring apple cider. I never asked for a thing, and yet they came. The morning of Ethan's birthday, the sky over Dayton was a soft silver, just enough chill to carry the smell of baked sugar and pine. I swept the garage floor twice, polished the chrome on the old Mustang, and pulled out the hand-painted sign Mason had made Happy Birthday E. At 1 o'clock sharp, the truck pulled in. Lindsay stepped out first. Ethan followed, his jacket a little too big again, his smile even bigger. "Whoa," he whispered, as he saw the decorations, the table with cupcakes and tool-shaped cookies, the mini banner over the shop door. "You did this?" he asked. "Not just me," I said. "The whole crew." And sure enough, one by one they arrived. Ava with the lemon cake, Mason with a homemade toolbox set for kids, Denise with paper hats and cider. Even old Mr. Greer brought a balloon tied to a wrench. Ethan lit up like someone had handed him a key to the world. We didn't sing a fancy song, just mumbled through Happy Birthday while Ava lit 5 crooked candles. Ethan clapped after every verse. Again he shouted. So we sang twice. He opened the toolbox first. Inside were real tools, just smaller. A note inside read, "Because fixing runs in the family." Then came the sketchbook. Page after page of his own drawings, cars, dogs, trees, and one picture of a man in a cap beside a garage. Me. I didn't cry. But I came close. Later he tugged on my sleeve. "Grandpa, can I help fix something?" I pointed to an old radio on the bench. "Think you can handle this?" He nodded seriously, slipping on his safety goggles like a true professional. While he worked, Lindsay and I sat nearby, sipping cider. "He hasn't smiled this much in weeks," she said. "You gave him something we couldn't—" I looked at her. "No. We gave it. You brought him here. That matters more than anything." She was quiet for a moment. "Then I've been thinking, maybe next summer he could stay a few weeks. Just if it's okay with you." My heart didn't leap. It steadied. "That would be more than okay," I said softly. As the sun dipped lower, the lights above the tables flickered on. Music played low from the old stereo classic tunes, nothing loud. Ethan danced with Ava, then challenged Mason to a wrench race, whatever that was. I just sat back and watched. Watched my grandson laugh, surrounded by people who didn't owe him anything, but showed up anyway. Because love doesn't need permission. It just needs presence. Before they left, Ethan ran back and threw his arms around me. "Best day ever," he whispered. "Even better than the zoo." I laughed. That's a high bar. As they drove away, I stood by the garage door, one hand resting on the Happy Birthday sign, heart full. Not from the cake, not from the gifts, but from knowing I had helped build something again, not a machine, not a business, but a place where a little boy could feel like he mattered. And maybe, just maybe, so could I. Some mornings now, I rise before the sun and sit on the bench outside the garage with a mug of black coffee in hand. No more rushing, no more proving, just quiet, just breath. The old Mustang glints under the porch light, and somewhere inside a small sketchbook with grease marks and dreams lies open on the workbench. Ethan left it there last weekend, said he was working on a blueprint for a car that could fly. I told him I'd save him a space on the roof when he builds it. Funny thing is, I used to think the story of my life was over when Lindsay shut the door on me. When that Christmas morning came and went with a text and a $2 lottery ticket, that kind of family betrayal doesn't just sting, it rewires you. Makes you question whether everything you built, every ride to soccer practice, every packed lunch, every sleepless night meant anything at all. But it does. It did. I just needed time and space to remember that I meant something too. Forgiveness didn't show up with a grand gesture or a perfect apology. It crept in slowly in the way Ethan ran to me with his drawings, in the way Lindsay sat beside me during that birthday party and didn't flinch when we talked about the past. It came in pieces, like an engine being rebuilt one bolt at a time. I didn't forgive because they earned it. I forgave because I needed peace more than I needed punishment, and somewhere in that choice I found myself again. We call the garage the bench now. Not a business, not a shop, just a place. A space for stories, old cars, new dreams, and second chances. Every Saturday morning, folks gather here. Some come with tools, some come with grief, most come with both. We drink coffee, pass around wrench sets, and talk about the things we lost and the things we're learning to build from what remains. One woman named Ruth came in last week. 71 quiet eyes that had seen too much. She told me her daughter hadn't spoken to her in 6 years after an argument over a will. I think she thinks I love the money more than her, Ruth whispered. I handed her a lemon muffin and said, maybe she's waiting for a crack to open. You just gave her one, and I believed that, because I'd lived that. The past doesn't vanish, but it doesn't get to steer forever either. Sometimes we just need someone to say, it's never too late to be what you might have been. George Eliot wrote that. I'd heard it before, but now I believe it. I am becoming what I might have been, not the man who gave everything and disappeared, but the man who stayed, who chose kindness without weakness, boundaries without bitterness. If you're listening to this and your story sounds anything like mine, if you've been broken by silence, by disappointment, by a family betrayal that left you staring at the walls, wondering if love was ever real, I want to say this, you are still here. You matter not because someone remembers to call you or buys you the right gift, but because you exist with stories etched in your hands and strength still left in your bones. Don't wait for a permission slip to live. Make the muffins. Open the door. Start the garage or the garden or the letter. Your story doesn't have to end in bitterness or silence. It can end in presence, in forgiveness, in the simple decision to stay open even after everything. This is my story. But more than that, it's the story of so many who've been cast aside and chose to rebuild, who planted roots again, not in the same place, but in good soil. We call it her story sometimes, or his or theirs, because what we do here at the bench isn't just fixing engines. It's fixing the part of ourselves that thought we were beyond repair. So if you're still with me at the end of this journey, tell me in the comments, what part of your story are you still holding close? What have you learned from what you lost? And if this story touched something in you, please like, share, or subscribe. Not for me. But for the next person scrolling late at night wondering if it's too late, remind them it's never too late to be what you might have been. George Eliot.